Welcome to Tablenauts. My name is Max, and I just finished playing the introduction or first chapter scenario from Into the Godsgrave, which is Lucky Duck's newest digital hybrid board game coming to crowdfunding very soon. I have quite a bit of experience with Lucky Duck's older titles, such as Destinies. We even had a chance to try out The Dark Quarter, which is still yet to be released, but is coming according to updates. And this, I wondered how it would be unique. And I'm here to tell you that it does differentiate enough from their other titles to make it worthwhile. Now, I actually don't have any experience with this game, but I'm going to say that this is going to be a cross between Destinies and Lord of the Rings Journey in Middle-earth because of these cards, right? This is the core of the game. These unique cards that are going to allow you to manipulate your dice, that are going to allow you to do things just like damage. There is a backstab card that I had for my elf infiltrator that allowed me to deal 3 piercing damage to an enemy in my area and stun it. And so there are things that you can do outside of just interacting with points of interest. You are a mercenary and you're accepting jobs, but you're finding yourself tangled up in a web of gods and triarchies and things that you didn't necessarily think you would get intermingled with. So if you're interested in the story of Into the Godsgrave, be sure to check out their website, Board Game Geek page, and of course their crowdfunding page coming up. But I'm here to tell you about the gameplay and whether I enjoyed it. So I played this two-handed. First things first, it's quite a bit. Because of the fact that you have a deck of 30 cards per character, and I was having hands of 5, 6, 7 cards at a time on occasion, there is quite a bit of information to parse that makes it quite a bit more difficult and complex than other games like The Dark Quarter or Destinies, where you didn't have that hand of cards to really have to focus on. On the other hand, I think that's a good thing because it gives you a lot more to do. This is still a very app-driven game. It's still very app-heavy. However, because you have those cards and you're going to be spending a lot of time reading over them and deciding how you want to use them, it doesn't feel nearly as app-involved as the other games. Now, I can't tell you how much percentage of my gameplay I spent with my head on the phone, but I can tell you that it didn't feel like nearly as much to me as some previous Lucky Duck experiences. Because this is a narrative experience, this isn't a Euro game, a mathematical Euro game where you can plan things out and it's 100% strategy, no luck. This is a story. And storytelling often revolves around luck and dice, and this certainly does. Now, I will say that these dice are very swingy. You can have wild successes and incredible failures. However, in my experience, my limited experience with the prototype chapter, it felt that there was always more than a single path to victory, right? So it felt like even if I failed, I was going to be able to do something different, or I was going to be able to use a card so the next time I'd have much better chances. And the swinginess, although definitely prevalent, never felt bad, rather. One of the things that I liked the most about Into the Godsgrave is something that really has nothing to do with the turn-by-turn gameplay, but instead is this deck of plan cards. For example, if I chose the plan card Hunt Them Down at the start of my turn, it says when attacking an enemy that is already damaged, add +1 die of any type. So you get to choose another die and add it to your hand. Typically, you're going to be rolling 3 die, but there are items and other things like this Iron Mace that allows me to roll an additional red die when attacking. So I can add a die of that type, and then it also has these 3 symbols on the side, which is like your gold and currency, the amount of cards you draw, and the amount of movement tokens you draw. So each one gives you a special ability and also changes the amount of resources you're going to get for that turn. And I did feel that choosing when to use what was actually extremely impactful. And it makes you feel kind of smart, right? Because, you know, if I'm in the middle of a board and there's no enemies around me, well, I may want to use guard duty or something like that, or stay alert rather, because it seems fishy, right? Like, I'm in the middle of this board, there's no enemies, I feel like I might be getting ambushed. And if you're in a fight with two people, you use hunt them down. And that way, once you damage them, you're doing even more damage to them. So I really, really enjoyed the aspect of these plan cards as they made me feel smart and they changed up each and every round, right? It's not like I'm going to end a single round and I have 5 movement, 5 currency. Next round, 5 movement, 5 currency. No, these are pretty wildly different. 2 movement, 5 movement, 5 currency, 3 currency, 8 currency. So like, it really does matter which plan card you take. And I thought that that was pretty unique. I hadn't seen that in a game, to my experience at least. And I found that that made the turn by turn feel that much more involved. It didn't feel like I was doing as much just going through the motions because there's an ever-changing plan happening each time you go to take your turn. At least in the first scenario, there was a glorified timer, basically. I had a set number of turns before I had to get the caravan off the map. Now, in my first run through, I actually failed at getting the caravan off the map. I got to the second to last tile, but didn't make it through. And I will say that the failure text, it obviously wasn't like, at least in my experience, because I don't have any more scenarios to go through, it did not seem like a, you failed, play again, right? Which would suck, I think. I think that would suck. Instead, it was like, you failed, and it gave you a text, and that text was intriguing to me. It was like, oh, you're in the thick of things now. I need your help even more than I did before. You're in trouble. They're never going to forget your face, whatever. I thought that was great. Even if I fail, I want there to be a evolving narrative, right? I love Gloomhaven, but I hate when games like Gloomhaven are like, you failed, try again. Like, do more. I think you can do more. I think you could do better. I think there can be consequences in an ever-changing story, even if you're not failing. You can fail forward. You can move the plot line forward, even if you're not actually succeeding, just on a branching path. So I was really happy to see that. And I will say, that the stress that was added because of the timer was really good to me. You may not like that. You may not be a fan of added stress because you're on a timer. And let me clarify, it wasn't you have 7 minutes. Like I said, it was you have 8 turns. So you can take all the time in the world that you want to complete those 8 turns, but once those turns are up, you're done. Now for me, I think I could have tightened up my turns in a way that I was more efficient with my movement and with my resources and with my activations, because you don't have unlimited activations. You're given a couple every round. So you can look at points of interest, but if you want to fight or do skill checks, then you have to use those activations. So one of the things that popped up for me, I don't want to give mega spoilers out for this, but I mean, I'm going to talk briefly about it. But there was a scenario, a point of interest that I looked at that basically there was a family that needed help, and I chose to help them. The tile previously, I robbed somebody. So I thought, well, I was bad that tile. Let me be good this tile. And basically, they wanted some assistance getting home. So I had to actually backtrack a couple tiles to deliver them safely home. And they rewarded me with a full stomach, which allowed me to heal up. But that took at least one of my 8 turns, if not almost 2 full turns. I probably shouldn't have done that, or at the same time, I should have been more efficient with my other character. You see, I was taking them back, and I was kind of sticking around and investigating, but not really moving forward too much because I didn't want to get caught off guard and killed, which maybe was a smart thing by me, but ultimately I failed, so I guess not. But I really like that. I like that the story presented me with decisions to make, that I could say, forget you, I have a job to do. Or I could say, yes, I will help you. Pay no mind to the murdered person on the road on the way to your house. That wasn't me. He was there before I got there. It wasn't me. Of course, I only have this one experience to go off of, this single prototype scenario. So who knows what all is in the full game, but I know there's going to be more scenarios, more items, more characters, more miniatures, whatever it may be. But for me, I felt like the first scenario was sufficient and plentiful in like the changing of my characters, because ultimately this is a game about your characters navigating a difficult situation and attempting to better themselves and help the world. And if I ended scenario 1 the same way I began, I would have felt a little ripped off. But throughout the course of the scenario, I had some awesome items crop up. I increased my power significantly. I one-shot one of the bandits with my character after rolling an incredible roll, and it felt like I started weak and then in turn got stronger. Now, one of the things that I would like to know is, does your items carry over from chapter 1 to chapter 2? And I don't have the answer to that. I am just as much in the dark on those things as you are, but I would be curious, because if not, I think thematically that doesn't really work. It's a disconnect for me. If I'm traveling down this path and I'm gaining these items from my deck and then I get to where I'm going and then I don't have those items anymore, I don't think I'd like that. But at the same time, I'm not sure how they're going to deal with that. So that is something that hopefully their campaign page can shed some light on. I would be very interested to see how this campaign actually is going to play out. I wish that I was given more of a prototype to be able to come with you with more knowledge on how the game works, but from my limited experience with this one chapter, I think I can safely say that if you like these types of games, this seems like it's going to be a pretty cool version of them. If you're not a fan of the app-driven games, I think it's a pretty easy pass. It's one of those things that I think it's kind of cut and dry whether this game is for you or for not. I know for us, we loved The Dark Quarter. This is probably going to be another one that Doolin would really, really enjoy. I really liked it as a fan of Destinies. So if you like that, this is in that wheelhouse, but I think amped up some due to the card play, which is a welcomed addition in my opinion. If you've played those games or decided for yourself that they're not for you, this is probably a pass. So I think they found their audience with that digital hybrid game, and I think they're leaning into it. Ultimately, I do think that this adds enough to be different and welcomed addition to that line of games. I think this is probably the best gameplay. It's less detective-y like The Dark Quarter or Chronicles of Crime, and more actual card play and combo building and how the cards play off one another and how the characters can play off one another. So hopefully this video in combination with the campaign page will give you enough information so you can make a good decision for you. For my experience, I really enjoyed this. I'm not a solo gamer at all, and I did have a good time with this. I'm not saying it's the best solo game in the world. I have such limited solo experience to be able to speak highly to that. But for my money, I thought this was a fun experience. I really liked how towards the end of the scenario, I was able to start comboing things together and feeling more powerful and unique. And the story, despite losing, hooked me towards the end there, right? I want to know more about this. There's a mysterious figure, which I won't show for spoilers, that popped up on the map and did some cool things, and I want to know about them. I want to know why we're here, because I'm just a mercenary, man. I don't know what's going on, and I'm getting wrapped up into things I probably shouldn't have been wrapped up in, but I'm excited to figure out what that was all about. I hope you enjoyed this video, and hopefully it gave you a bit of an insight to whether Into the Godsgrave is for you. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I appreciate you all so very much, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.